Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are tackling a beast that I think every cloud professional wrestles with eventually. We're moving away from this old school idea of security, where you just build a big wall around your network.
Right. The castle and moat approach.
Exactly. And we're moving into a world where identity is the new firewall.
It really is. I mean, in a cloud-first world, we aren't just protecting network perimeters anymore. We're protecting credentials.
Right.
If someone has your identity, they have the keys.
Right.
It just doesn't matter how strong your firewall is if I can walk right through the front door with a valid password.
So our mission today is to demystify Microsoft Entra ID, which, let's be honest, we all still accidentally call Azure AD,
All the time.
and figure out how to govern all this chaos of cloud resources without becoming a total bottleneck. For this, we've got a stack of technical deep dives, some cheat sheets, and expert lectures from folks like John Saville and Microsoft Learn.
And it's so crucial if you don't get identity and governance right. I mean, the best case scenario is you just spend way too much money.
And the worst case.
Well, the worst case involves data breaches, compliance failures, and a lot of late nights trying to figure out who deleted the production database.
Okay, let's start with the basics then, because the sources made a really important distinction right away.
Yeah.
Microsoft Entra ID is not just Active Directory in the cloud.
No, and that's probably the biggest misconception. Traditional Active Directory, the stuff running on servers in a closet somewhere, it's hierarchical. It uses protocols like Kerberos, LDAP.
Old school stuff.
Yeah, very on-prem focus. Entra ID it's fundamentally different. It's a flat structure. It's web-based. It speaks HTTP and REST APIs, the language of the internet.
I found a great analogy for this. Think of traditional AD like a physical filing cabinet.
Okay.
You've got folders inside of folders. Those are your organizational units, or OUS, and you apply rules to those specific folders. It's very structured.
Right, very rigid. And Entra ID is more like a giant bucket. It's flat.
A bucket of tags.
Exactly. No folders inside folders. You have this massive bucket of users and objects, and you organize them with attributes or tags. It's built for internet scale, not for, organizing office printers by floor number.
So if it's a giant bucket, what are we putting in the bucket? The sources break down three main user types. First up, cloud identities.
Yep. These are the ones born and bred in Entra. They usually end in onmicrosoft.com. They're the simplest because they live entirely in the cloud, no baggage.
But most companies aren't that simple. They have baggage.
Oh, they have baggage. So you get the second type, directory synced identities. This is where you use a tool, Microsoft Entra Connect, to sync your on-prem users up into the cloud.
The hybrid approach.
Exactly. It lets your users sign into cloud apps with the same password they use for their desktop. It bridges that gap.
And then there's the third type, which I think is so clever, the guest or external user. This is the fix for the contractor password nightmare, right?
It is. This is the business-to-business or B2B feature. The source material calls it a stub object.
A stub object. I like that. What does that actually mean for someone listening?
So you invite a user from another company, say a consultant, who uses Gmail or their own corporate Entra ID. You invite them, but their actual identity, their password, it all lives in their home system.
Ah, so you're not managing their credentials at all.
Not at all. You just hold a reference, a stub, that points to them.
If they leave their company and their account gets disabled there.
They automatically lose access to your stuff too, precisely. You don't have to remember to go and delete their account. If their home identity is gone, the stub in your environment just stops working.
That's clean. Okay, so we've got users in the bucket. Now we need to organize them with groups. The sources differentiate between security groups and Microsoft 365 groups.
Yeah, and the shorthand is to think about the intent. If you want to manage access like who can log into this VM, who can open this file, you use a security group. It's just for permissions.
And Microsoft 365 groups are bigger.
They're for collaboration. When you create an M365 group, you're not just getting a list of users. You're spinning up a shared mailbox, a calendar, a Teams channel. It's about working together.
Got it. So don't use an M365 group if you just need to secure a folder.
Please don't. You'll end up with 1,000 unused SharePoint sites.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting for admins. You don't have to manually add people to these groups. The sources talk about dynamic membership.
This is the magic option. Instead of manually adding Bob from marketing to the marketing group, you write a rule.
What kind of rule?
A simple one, like if a user's department attribute equals marketing, put them in this group.
And if Bob moves to HR?
The system sees that attribute change and automatically removes him from the marketing group and, assuming you have a rule for it, adds him to the HR group. It automates access.
That prevents that permission creep where people just collect access rights over the years.
Exactly. But speaking of things that, well, that costs money, we have to talk about licensing. There's the free tier and then premium P1 and P2. Is P2 really worth it? For security?
Oh, yeah.
The headline feature in P2 is something called Privileged Identity Management.
PIM.
Right, PIM. It addresses a huge security hole. In a lot of companies, admins are global admins 24/7. If their account gets phished at 3 a.m. on a Sunday,
The attacker has the keys to everything.
instantly, PIM changes that to just-in-time access. You're a standard user most of the time.
And you elevate when you need to.
Exactly. You go in, you request to activate your role, maybe give a justification, do an MFA check, and then you get admin rights for, say, 2 hours. After that, they just dissolve.
So even if someone steals my password, they don't get the admin rights.
Yeah.
That's a huge reduction in the attack surface.
A massive reduction.
Yeah.
And you get an audit trail of who elevated and when.
Okay, so we've covered the who. Let's move to the what. What can they actually do? This is role-based access control, or RBAC.
Right. RBAC is all about answering 3 questions. Who can do what and where?
And that where part, the scope, that seems to trip people up, the sources visualize it as a waterfall.
That's a perfect way to think about it. At the top, you have management groups. Below that, subscriptions, then resource groups. And at the bottom, the individual resources, like a VM.
And permissions flow down.
Always down. Inheritance is automatic. If I make you an owner at the subscription level, you are instantly an owner of every single thing inside that subscription.
So you need to be really careful where you assign those permissions.
Always assign at the lowest possible scope. Don't give someone the keys to the entire building if they just need access to one office.
Let's talk about those roles. We have owner, contributor, and reader. Reader is obvious. But owner versus contributor, what's the real difference?
It comes down to one thing: managing permissions. A contributor can do almost everything. Restart VMs, delete databases, but they cannot give permissions to anyone else.
Only an owner can hand out the keys.
That's the distinction. An owner can do everything and manage access for others.
Now, the sources mention a specific trap with the global admin role. You'd think being a global admin in Entra means you can see all the Azure subscriptions, right?
You would think so, but you'd be wrong. Entra ID roles and Azure resource roles are 2 separate worlds. Being a global admin makes you king of the identity directory.
But not the resources.
Exactly. It gives you 0 access to the actual Azure resources by default. You could be a global admin, log into the Azure portal, and see nothing.
That's terrifying if the person who owned the subscription leaves the company. How do you get back in?
There is a back door, basically. In the Entra ID properties, there is a toggle called Access Management for Azure Resources.
The big red button.
It's the break glass in case of emergency switch. A global admin flips that switch, and it temporarily elevates them to a role called User Access Administrator at the very top level. That lets them get back into any subscription.
So you use it, fix the permissions, and then turn it off.
Absolutely. Do not leave that switch on.
All right, let's pivot to governance. If RBAC is about who, governance is about setting the rules of the road.
It's the guardrails. It's about stopping people from doing stupid things or, expensive things.
And the main tool here is Azure Policy. How is that different from RBAC?
RBAC focuses on the user. Can John create a VM? Azure Policy focuses on the resource. What kind of VM is allowed?
So RBAC says, yes, John, you can build a house. And Policy says...
But it can't be a mansion, and it has to be built in this specific neighborhood.
Perfect. So I could have a policy that says only allow deployments in the UK South region.
Yep, for data sovereignty. Or a policy that says only allow these specific, cheaper VM sizes. It prevents budget overruns before they even happen.
And what was that remediation feature? Deploy if node exists.
Yeah, that's really powerful. It doesn't just block things, it fixes them. Let's say you have a policy that every VM must have a monitoring agent.
Okay.
If someone deploys a VM without it, this policy type will see that and automatically install the agent for you. It enforces compliance in real time.
That's brilliant. Now, what about stopping people from accidentally deleting stuff? That's where resource locks come in.
Right? And you have 2 main types, cannot delete and read only.
Cannot delete seems clear enough. I can edit it, I can restart it, but I can't delete it.
Correct. And read only basically turns it into a museum piece. Look, but don't touch.
But this is where the sources gave us that huge aha moment. The difference between the control plane and the data plane. This is where people get burned.
It's one of the most vital distinctions. Resource locks apply to the control plane. That's the management layer of Azure.
So if I put a read-only lock on a storage account,
You cannot change the storage account settings. You can't change its redundancy, its tags, anything like that.
but what about the files, the actual data inside?
That's the data plane. The lock does nothing to stop you from uploading, modifying, or even deleting all the blobs and files inside that storage account.
Wait, are you serious? So I could have a read-only lock on an account thinking my data is safe, but a user could still go in and delete everything.
100%. The lock protects the container, the Azure resource itself, not the contents. Admins miss this all the time.
Wow, okay, that's a gotcha if I've ever heard one. Let's talk about organizing everything. Tags.
Tags are just digital sticky notes. Key value pairs, cost center, IT, environment, production, they're absolutely essential for billing reports.
But the crucial detail from the cheat sheets was about inheritance.
Or, more accurately, the lack of inheritance. This is another trap. If you put a tag on a resource group,
The resources inside don't get that tag.
not by default, no. The tag only applies to the object you stick it on. So if you run a billing report based on the Project X tag and you only tag the group, none of the VMs inside will show up.
So you'll have this huge chunk of unassigned costs. How do you fix that?
You have to use Azure policy again. You create a policy that says inherit tags from the parent resource group, but you have to set that up. It doesn't happen automatically.
Speaking of costs, let's talk cost management. The meter's always running.
It is. And the most basic tool you have is a budget. But there's a big misconception here. Setting a budget in Azure doesn't actually turn things off when you hit the limit.
It just yells at you.
Pretty much. It sends an email or an SMS saying, hey, you've hit 80% of your spend. It's an alarm system, not a circuit breaker.
So you still have to wake up, get the email, log in, and shut down the VM yourself.
Exactly. If you ignore the alert, the bill just keeps climbing.
Let's circle back to users. Password resets are the bane of every help desk.
They're expensive and they kill productivity. That's why SSPR self-service password reset is a must-have.
But for hybrid organizations with on-prem AD, there's a catch.
There is. If a user resets their password in the cloud, that new password has to get back to the on-premise server. This is called password writeback.
What happens if you don't have it?
The cloud password changes, but their Office desktop password stays the same. So they try to log into their computer, it fails, and they call the help desk anyway.
Defeating the whole purpose.
Totally. Writeback requires a premium P1 license, and you have to enable it in Entra Connect, but it's essential for a smooth hybrid experience.
We also have to manage the devices themselves. The sources outlined 3 device identity types.
Right. First, Entra Registered. This is BYOD, bring your own device, your personal phone that you use to check Outlook. The company doesn't own it, but it knows about it.
Then Entra Joined.
That's the modern cloud-native standard. A corporate laptop that logs in directly with an Entra ID account. No on-prem AD connection at all.
And the bridge between the 2 worlds.
Hybrid Entra Joined. This is where most large enterprises are today. The device is joined to the old on-prem AD, but it's also registered in the cloud. It lets them get cloud benefits like single sign-on while still using their existing management tools.
It's a lot to balance. Identity, access, governance, cost, devices. It feels like the whole role of an Azure admin is changing.
It absolutely is. You're not just a server mechanic anymore. You're a governance architect. You're defining the rules of the road for the entire organization in the cloud.
So we started this by saying identity is the new perimeter. What's the final thought on that?
It means you have to shift your entire security mindset. If you're still pouring all your energy into firewalls and networks, but you have admins who are global admins 24/7, you're leaving the front door wide open.
And the sources brought up a really provocative point about service principles.
Yes, and this is the thought to leave everyone with. We spend so much time worrying about our human users. We make them use MFA, we check their passwords. But what about the non-human identities?
The identities for apps and scripts.
Exactly. Service principles. They often have long-lived passwords or secrets, and they don't have a phone to get an MFA code.
And if an attacker compromises one of those,
if they compromise a service principle that has contributor rights to your subscription, they can do just as much damage as a human admin, but they might fly completely under the radar.
Because no one's watching to see if the backup script is logging in from a strange country.
We watch the humans, but we often ignore the robots. And the robots have keys to the kingdom, too.
That is a chilling thought. So, for everyone listening, here is your call to action. Go look at your Azure environment. Do you have critical resource groups without delete locks? Do you have budgets that actually alert someone?
And check your global admins. Do they all really need those permissions all day, every day? Or is it time to look at PM? And please, take a look at the permissions on your service principals.
A well-governed cloud is a cheaper and a much, much safer cloud. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
My pleasure.
We'll catch you on the next one.